Hello, hello, hello. Welcome to episode number 16 of Well Beyond the Arc. I'm Manoli,
And I'm Montana.
and we're happy to have you guys with us. Today, our episode title is Rank 'em, and Montana and I are going to do just that. We're going to rank the top five NBA players of all time at each of the five traditional positions. So we got a great show for you guys. Happy that you're here enjoying us tonight. A couple housekeeping notes, just as always. If you haven't done so already, please subscribe to the Yankee and the Brit Sports Group. If you're watching us on YouTube, just hit that subscribe button on the bottom left-hand corner. If you are watching us or listening to us, excuse me, on iHeartRadio, Spotify, wherever you find your podcasts, hello, 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 and yeah, let's just dive right into it, Montana. A couple things before we want to touch on before we head into ranking the top five of all time at each of the positions. Kevin Durant, our probably most mentioned player since we've started this podcast, that isn't named Russell Westbrook, managed to get himself in the news again. He met with the Nets owner, G.O.A.T, I believe is how you pronounce his last name. Forgive me if I've mispronounced that, but he met with them again to kind of follow up on his trade request that he made about a month or so ago, and basically gave the Mets owner an ultimatum: either keep me or fire general manager Sean Marks and head coach Steve Nash. Montana, I'm floored at this. I just want to get your thoughts first.
I am not entirely shocked. There's one of two things. He either means that or he doesn't. He's either just saying that and he's trying to push this and get them to just get through a trade and get it figured out, or he really does want to stay and make it potentially work, but he doesn't think it'll work with them. We have talked about Steve Nash. I think both of us agree. Plenty of room to grow as a coach. What is this? It's going to be his third or fourth season, so plenty of room
Think
to grow as a
third, yeah.
coach. Plenty of room to grow, but he might not. He isn't the guy for a team that has Kevin Durant, Kyrie Irving, and I don't think he has his style figured out yet. I think that they really went through a tough time figuring out what type of basketball they wanted to play. And I think that came a lot from him not having a solid plan, a solid game plan. So I think there's a lot of truth to that. I think the Nets team could get better. So it's going to go one of two ways. I think either this is a real thing and are they going to fire? They're not going to fire both of them, but I think they can come to a middle ground. If Kevin Durant has any interest in staying, I think they can get him to stay. And another factor is the Kyrie Irving part. If he's staying, which it looks like he says he is, which is also, everything's frozen. A lot of stuff is still frozen. A lot of stuff is still on edge because of this Kevin Durant thing. I think there's a lot of late, postseason things we're going to see that I think we're going to see some big moves happen really close to the season because this Kevin Durant thing froze everything, and the Kyrie Irving thing that was all anyone focused on. So personally, I think Kevin Durant is going to end up staying, and I think they're going to end up coming to a middle ground. But he also could just be trying to push this and put the final nail in the coffin and just get shipped out. And I don't blame him. I don't think the Nets are going anywhere anytime soon, at least in the right direction.
I'm just gonna say it. I'm sick of Kevin Durant. He is one of the most talented players of all time, and I'm willing to bet that at least one of us is going to have him on our list later on as one of the top small forwards. But this dude, I get it. He's not happy. He doesn't want to be there. Ship him out. But to hold the whole franchise hostage and threatening or asking them to fire the head coach who you basically picked and endorsed when you first went to Brooklyn in the first place. Maybe you don't get along with the general manager. That's fine. That's your right. But that just shows the pull of superstar players these days. Does he want to go? Does he want to stay? Okay, this is why I want to leave. Like, come on, man. Make up your mind. Either you stay or you go. That's it. But I don't think the Nets are going to fire their general manager and head coach 3 months before the season starts. I just don't think that's going to happen. I think Kevin Durant's not going anywhere unless you find a willing trade partner. Obviously, it hasn't happened to this point. No one wants to help the Nets. I wouldn't want to help the Nets either. If it got me Kevin Durant, that's fine, but I'm not going to go out of my way to help the Nets. And the funny thing here is, even Kyrie Irving recently came out and said, "Yeah, I want to stay with the Nets this season." Well, of course you do. You're under contract for like $37 million. You have to stay unless they trade you. Bum 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 bum. Yeah, you're under contract, man. But he also he allegedly kind of had the same comments as Kevin Durant. Well, if you guys get rid of Sean Marks and Kevin Nash, another WWE wrestler, Steve Nash. Yeah, then I'll stay too. It's ridiculous. We'll see how it goes. I don't think the Nets are going to fire their front office, but neither here nor there.
We could see them part ways with somebody, but I don't think they will part ways with both of them. I could see them maybe parting ways with Nash. I
Yes.
still think that's a little bit out of the, a little far, but I can see them parting ways with Nash. And if it's going to keep Irving and KD there, they're going to do that. They want to keep those guys because they've built all that hype up around those guys. The second they lose those guys, they're just the Brooklyn Nets again.
Yep. I think I almost called him Kevin Nash again. Steve Nash, one of the best NBA point guards ever, 2-time MVP. Got to learn in Golden State under Steve Nash as a consultant, kind of the coaching ranks there. And, as a point guard, you're kind of the coach on the floor. I do think it was a mistake of the Nets to hire him in the first place. He hasn't been terrible, but when you have those type of superstars and you're expected to compete for a championship right away, I would have thought you'd want a more experienced coach and things of that nature. So we shall see. Well, from the ongoing Young and the Restless soap opera known as the Brooklyn Nets, we go and we check in briefly with some things happening in the Pro-Am leagues. The Drew League has become more and more popular over the last 15 years. LeBron James and DeMar DeRozan recently took part and thrilled a small crowd there in the Drew League about a week or so ago. LiAngelo Ball, of all people, scored 52 or 53 points in a Drew League game. I don't know how he did that, but that's got to mean something, right? You have these pros that even like guys that are 12 men or, on the cusp of being cut, like a Malachi Flynn, I believe is how you pronounce his name, 73 points in a Pro-Am game. But the story that's come out in the last week or so are the antics of former Spurs and current Atlanta Hawks guard Dejounte Murray. There's some viral clips of him just clowning guys, including number 1 overall pick Paolo Banchero, the Magic, in I think it was either Isaiah Thomas or Jamal Crawford's Pro-Am up in Seattle earlier this week, I think it was. Montana, I don't know if you've seen the clips, but what do you make of Jamal Murray's antics in the Pro-Ams here?
I mean, honestly, I would say there's a huge factor in where he's playing for now. That Hawks team, Trae Young's kind of a villain in the league. People look at him like that, especially if you're a Knicks fan. You definitely look at him like a villain. I mean, he is the new Reggie Miller to Knicks fans. That's kind of he really, and it was just one playoff series, but ever since when they played them since, I mean, no one likes him there. So he's a villain. This could be they could all be coming together and saying we're just going to go out there and be a menace to the league. I think that's what it is. I think they're just he's in that mindset already. Now, is he going to do that during the NBA regular season at Pro? No, he's not going to do stuff like that. But he is going to have that effect on players. He is going to bully players. He is going to get in their head. And I think we're seeing a whole new side of him. And I think that is a side that is going to be an NBA champion within the next 6 years.
Yeah, no, it's interesting. I mean, he got out of San Antonio and all of a sudden he let his hair down and decided, hey, this is who I am. I'm going to show more of my personality. I've not necessarily escaped Pop's grip, but I mean, you didn't see him do this kind of stuff in San Antonio. Some of it's funny. I think the whole Paolo Banchero, Dejounte Murray beef is hilarious because the rookie got mad at, okay, he clowned him on one play and then he decided to go at him on Instagram and this and that. Like, come on, man, you got to be stronger than that, mentally stronger. It definitely makes the first game, the Atlanta Magic and Orlando. I'm sorry, the Orlando Magic. I'm all over the place today. Orlando Magic and Atlanta Hawks. An actual must-watch game. I can't believe I'm saying that, but
he's going to have a target on his back now, though, because people know he's
absolutely
soft.
is.
People know he's in the number 1 pick. People are going to go for his head after seeing that, because if that got in his head as much as it seemed to, just wait till you're on the big stage. And I'm not talking about playoffs or finals. I'm talking about a regular Thursday night game. All right, that's the big time. It doesn't matter what day. It doesn't matter when it is. That's the big league. So if he's soft and he's having that reaction now, I think he's going to have a huge target on his head now, and maybe he'll react well to that and he'll be tough. And I mean, again, disrespectful, sure, but it wasn't worth going as far as he took it. And he just hurt himself, and he's going to have a target on his back now.
You want to go back at him? Go back and dunk on him at the other end. Don't say anything. Don't get
Yeah,
into this
exactly.
viral beef that can get you. That'll just blow up and put this target on your back. Just go out and beat him. Beat him on the court instead of this, like, I don't know, internet fight. Seems pretty ridiculous to me. But anyway, we'll keep an eye on that. And I guess we now have a reason to watch an Atlanta Hawks Orlando Magic game come the fall. Well, we're going to get into our favorite game a lot more quickly than usual. We want to save a lot of time to get into our debates on our top 5 NBA players of all time at each position. So we're going to head into everybody's favorite game, NBA player or. For those that have been following and watching and listening to Well Beyond the Arc since the beginning, you guys know how the game is played, but we're going to go through it again anyway. Every week, I give Montana 5 names, and Montana has to tell me whether or not that person is an NBA player, current or former, or somebody else, somebody from a different profession. So far, Montana is 46 out of 65. He's getting a lot more right than he is wrong. It is a game of chance, 50-50. But Montana seemed to do well. He's got 4 out of 5 the last 2 weeks in a row. He's still in search of his second ever 5 for 5, and we'll see how it goes.
Tonight.
This one might be a little tough, though, Montana.
Maybe not then.
Don't lose that confidence. Don't lose that confidence. Tonight's category is NBA player or 4-star U.S. general.
Wow, this one, okay.
Not gonna lie, I just happened to see an article that about some general. I'm like, okay, 4-star general. I had nothing else as of a few hours ago. Nothing. So anyway, if Montana happens to get a question right and guesses the name correctly, I should say, you will hear this sound. Victory! Thank you, Johnny Drama. And if he gets it incorrect, you will hear this sound. All right, simple enough. Name number 1, Montana. Is this the name of an NBA player or a 4-star Army general? I hope I got that right. The name is Jerome Richardson. Jerome Richardson.
Oh, man. Wow. Not quite as quick of an answer as last time. I'm going to go with 4-star Army general.
Unfortunately, that is the name of an NBA player, Jerome Richardson. Also the nickname of Pooh Richardson, played in the NBA from 1989 to 1999 with the Timberwolves, Pacers, and Clippers. 11.1 points, 6.5 assists in 639 career games.
Well, no 5 for 5.
Well,
get it out of the way right away, I guess.
We can stop now, but you got to start another streak here.
That's true.
All right.
That's true. You got it.
Name number 2. Is this the name of an NBA player or 4-star general? The name is Barry McCaffrey. Barry McCaffrey.
I'm going to stick with general.
Victory! Yes, sir. Barry McCaffrey. I don't know if he has any relation to former Broncos wide receiver Ed McCaffrey or current Panthers running back Christian McCaffrey, but he was named a 4-star general or promoted or elevated to a 4-star general in 1994. He was also the director of the National Drug Control Policy at one point, and he kind of looks like Commissioner Hurst from Police Academy, if you ever Google him. But
all right.
I don't think anybody's going to Google him anytime soon. All right. Name number 3, NBA player or 4-star general. The name is Wesley Clark.
NBA.
Victory! Actually,
oh no, that's the worst. That might be the worst thing that's happened to me all day. Wow.
Add that to our blooper reel. No, Wesley Clark is a 4-star general.
I had the hands up and everything over there.
That was like the Nick Young shooting the 3 and then putting his hands up like this, turning around when who cares with Wesley Clark? Sorry, Wesley Clark. I know you're a 4-star general, but we know you're not an NBA player. Let's just move on. Name number 4, NBA player, 4-star general. The name is Anthony Carter. Anthony Carter.
General.
Well, I know not to play any more military games, Anthony Carter was in the NBA from 1999 to 2012. Former point guard from the University of Hawaii. Played for the Heat, Spurs, Timberwolves, Nuggets, Knicks, Raptors. 4.8 points per game in 623 career games. Yeah. All right. Last but not least, let's end it with the good one, Montana. NBA player, 4-star general. The name is Winston Garland.
NBA player.
Victory!
Yes, sir. Winston Garland played in the NBA from 1987 to 1995 with the Golden State Warriors, Clippers, Nuggets, Rockets, Timberwolves. Averaged 9.4 points per game in 511 career games. However, his claim to fame is being the father of Cavaliers all-star point guard Darius Garland. So yes, NBA player. All right, 2 for 5. Montana, I promise I will not have next week's NBA player or have anything to do with any country's military or NATO or the United Nations, but better luck next week.
Yeah,
All
there we
right.
go.
We've got to find a way to shoot that Nick Young video of him putting his arms up when the shot rimmed out, but that's a different time. All right, everybody watching at home, please don't forget, throw in your comments. Throw us off. Feel free to comment along here with us, or just say hi. But we were going to go into ranking our top 5 NBA players of all time by position. 25 guys we're going to go through. We're going to go through them as quickly as we can. Feel free to chime in here. But we're going to start with the big men. We'll go with the traditional positions: center, power forward, small forward, shooting guard, point guard. But we're going to start with the big men. And I'll admit, Montana, when I was putting my list together, it was a lot more difficult than I thought it was going to be. So let's start with the big men. We'll go number 5 all the way to number 1. Who did you put at number 5 as far as number 5 center of all time?
So before I say who I picked, this was the center was the hardest one. I mean,
really,
point guard I got done quick.
Okay.
I mean, power forward. It was really the small forward and the center that was tricky for me. But
okay,
I kind of really sat down and thought about it. And so my 5th pick would be Robert Parrish, center for the Celtics. Biggest thing about him was not only was he a rebounding, he led the league in rebounds multiple seasons. He was just a force. He was a huge part of that Celtics dynasty in the 80s. He was a big part, winning 3 championships, with Larry Bird, really setting the bar for the future of centers as well. I think he was a huge piece of where the center position is at today was because of how he played the game. So my 5th pick would be Robert Parrish, because not only was he, a leader in rebounds, and he had a couple seasons where he was a defensive leader, he also won those championships that are thought of as some of the most prolific ones in history. So he's my 5th pick.
The Chief. Got me surprised there a little bit. I'm not, he's up there. I didn't have him in my top 5. For me, number 5, I put, and this is one of my favorite players of all time personally. Number 5 for me is NBA all-time center. Number 5, Hakeem the Dream Olajuwon. The guy was just, the guy's nickname was the Dream. The Dream Shake, uber athletic, could run the floor like a guard. Did it at both ends of the floor. A nightmare in the post. Definitely deserves to be one of the best players, ranked as one of the best players out of all time. But for me, I had Hakeem at number 5. All right. You want to hit your number 4?
No, so I was going to say, going to that, I had Hakeem at my 4th spot. So I had Hakeem at my 4th spot because of where he's at record-wise. He's obviously that leader in blocks, and he's a huge.
That's right.
He's up there. I don't know. That is another record. People don't look at that record like it's unbreakable, and it may not be, but that is a really tough record to beat, because Hakeem was getting so many blocks on any given night that he filled that up. The amount of blocks he got in the time he played was impressive, and no one thought it was ever going to be done again, and it may not be. I think it could be, but he's up there with records. Obviously, he's up there with rebounds as well. And, he's even up there decently high with steals. He's up there overall defensively. So to me, he's notched above Parrish because of where he's at in the record books, and also just where he's at as an all-around player. Obviously he won one less championship, but basketball just got more competitive. And arguably those championships those Rockets won were some of the most impressive we've seen because of the era of basketball they
Yes.
were in. So Hakeem,
Yes.
without them, they would have not even been close to that either. He was their piece. He was the Houston Rockets. I mean, they had some key other pieces, but that was who they were, was him.
Yeah, no, I agree. I don't think the Houston Rockets win either of their 2 championships without Hakeem Olajuwon. Um, and yeah, all-time leader of blocks. Um, you know, number 4, I actually have Shaq at number 4, who he took on head-to-head in the 1995 NBA Finals. For me, the center position was the hardest to rank 1 through. Or not, I'm sorry, was not the hardest 1 through 5. Um, yeah, I know Bring Us Smoke. You got number 1. You got him at number 1, but I got him at 4. That's tough. When you have Shaq at number 4 on a list, that's a pretty solid list. He's got a couple more championships on Hakeem. I mean, Hakeem took him to school in 1995, but after that, Shaq just dominated every center he played against after that. Almost 30,000 points, nearly 15,000 rebounds, 4 rings, arguably the most dominant big man of the history of the NBA. But for me, he's 4th on my list as far as greatest centers of all time. Who you got at number 3?
I've got Shaq at number 3. We're making this really easy. We're just bouncing back and forth. So I've got Shaq at number 3, and I have him over. And again, each player for me kind of has a different reason for being on my top 5. Parrish was kind of an overall. Hakeem was because of where he's at in the record books. Shaq is a mix of everything. Shaq obviously that dynasty with the Lakers, and then went off and won another one with Miami, which I'm not going to say people didn't think he was going to win another one, but leaving that dynasty was huge. And the fact that he bounced back so quickly, I mean, he bounced back before Kobe did. Let's just be honest.
Yes, he did.
He did have Dwayne Wade. That kind of helped a little bit probably. But, it definitely – Shaq bounced back, and Shaq was great until he retired. Now, of course, we saw him in the Celtics. I mean, people forget he played for the Suns, the Celtics, the Cavs. I mean, he's got the whole rainbow of jerseys. He probably has a whole.
Yes, he does.
He could set that
yes,
all out.
Yes, he does. He's got all the colors of the rainbow, the former
really
jerseys.
Does. So,
yeah.
His career lasted a long time, and we had great moments all the way through. But, how he was so dominant from when he got into the league until like 2006. And to be that dominant as a big man for that long and that consistent, we had not seen that much consistency. And I mean, you got a player like Patrick Ewing, who like the second he entered the league, his knees were bad. Centers were not seen to be that dominant that long. At least Shaq was dominant.
And athletic and dominant.
Yeah. Shaq was that, and he got way bigger too. Like he looked way different when he was on the Magic, and then he obviously got bigger, but he was still decently quick. He could move. I mean, he was great so long, and we had not seen a player be that consistent that often. So for me, Shaq's consistency and his greatness and what he held is why he's on my number 3.
Yeah, for me, number 3, for the reasons you just said, I have Wilt Chamberlain number 3. The only guy that next to Shaq that you can have an argument on who was more dominant as a big man in the NBA. I mean, before Kareem, before Michael Jordan, before some of these other guys, Kareem was the elite and the prominent scorer of the NBA of all time. I mean, he still to this day holds the record for most points in one game with 100. A lot of different scoring records, highest scoring average in one season with 50.4 points per game. And I think he was 3rd in MVP voting that year, that he had that 50 point per game average. But a couple championships for Wilt, but all the reasons you just said, but I have Wilt just happen to be at number 3. How about let's go to we are number 2, right? Yeah, number 2.
Yes. So I've got Kareem at number 2, big. Again, I picked him as my GOAT overall all time, and he is right up there. Just looking at him as a center, he's right up there, number 2 for me. There's a reason my number 1 is where my number 1 is, and it might be obvious who it is, it might not be. Who knows? People might not have expected Robert Parrish to be a number
Longley.
5. But that's
Luke
my
Longley,
number 1.
God, okay. Let's just stop the show right now.
Kareem is my number 2 because, again, Kareem did it all. If you look at the list of accolades, I mean, it's a whole page. He succeeded in every element of basketball, and he only shot 1 3-pointer, and he has the all-time record.
Yeah.
He's great. That right there it puts him up there. So for me, Kareem is number 2 because of just how great everything he accomplished is, and by everything I mean the whole page worth of stuff. So Kareem's my number 2.
Yeah, I think if I I'm going to guess who you have at number 1 is who I have at number 2, and that's for me. Number 2 is Bill Russell, greatest winner of all time in the history of the NBA. 11 championships. Um, if they would have counted block shots as a statistic, it is very possible that he would have dwarfed Hakeem Olajuwon's current NBA record. Right? He wasn't just a guy that won 11 championships. There's a reason why the Celtics won 11 championships. He was part of a team. He played a role. Uh, he was an underrated scorer at just under 20 points per game, but I think he averaged somewhere around 25 rebounds a game, a defensive force, the prolific defensive player of his era. He's going up against Chamberlain all the time, and most of the time his teams came out on top. I can't say enough. Team player, passing. The guy did it all other than shoot. But, still scoring about 20 points a game. You got to put the ball in the basket somehow, and Bill Russell did manage to do that. So for me, Bill Russell, number 2. So is that who you have at number 1?
It is. Bill Russell's my number 1. Biggest reason I had him at number 1 is because that 11 championship thing, you can't, to me, when I think about greatness, I mean, it's more than just championships, but if I'm looking at who I think the best at a position is, it's who got his team the most. Who did the most for their team? And of the 17 championships Boston has, 11 of those are his.
Yeah, it's crazy, isn't it?
You can't, no one's ever going to do it again. And no one
Not
ever
in this
thought it
day
would
and
be
age.
done ever. I mean, it was ridiculous. He did amazing things. And so he's my number 1 by far. Kareem was sort of close, but I had Russell because, again, he was there so long. He did so much for that team, and they would not be the organization they are today without him.
Completely agree. I am surprised that you had your GOAT at number 2 on a list, but I get it. For me, I had Kareem Abdul-Jabbar as my top center of all time. He's still currently the NBA's all-time leading scorer. The longevity, playing 20 seasons, had something to do with it. 6 MVPs. I believe, what did he have? 5 or 6 NBA championships? I think it was 6 because he had 1 with Milwaukee and 5 with the Lakers, I believe. So 6 championships. And the single hardest weapon in NBA history to stop, and that's a skyhook. I don't know if I've ever seen a clip of anybody blocking a skyhook. So just all of that puts, for me, Kareem Abdul-Jabbar as the greatest center in the history of the NBA. So overall, I mean, we had pretty similar lists. You had Robert Parrish, I had Chamberlain. Nothing too outrageous. Was surprised about Parrish, but it's not a bad pick. So we got the centers down. Let's move on to the power forwards. I'll start with my number 5.
Yeah,
that's all right with
definitely.
you.
Go for it.
A little bit of recency bias on my part, but I have Kevin Garnett as my number 5 greatest power forward of all time. KG was the man in Minnesota. Minnesota still has a team in Minneapolis in the NBA because of Kevin Garnett. They wouldn't have won anything without him. Not that they've won any championships, but they wouldn't have even been sniffing the playoffs without Kevin Garnett. And then him moving on to the Boston Celtics, getting championship number 17, former MVP, former defensive player of the year, 26,000 plus points, somewhere around 15,000 rebounds, perennial all defensive team. The guy did it on both ends of the floor. Also legendary trash talker. But for me, I have Kevin Garnett at number 5. How about you?
So for me, I've got Elvin Hayes as my number 5.
Solid pick.
For me, the pick of him was, obviously an NBA champion. Obviously, he led the league, and he had some really great seasons where he was really in the mix for the best players. Multiple time first team, multiple time second team. Like, he was everywhere. He was doing it all. He was achieving a lot of things, and I don't want to say that position was underdeveloped at that time, but I think that he was a big reason for expanding that position because he had a pretty consistent overall game. So he did a lot for the league for where it is now. And then he's, an NBA champion. He was a first team. He led the league in rebounds a season or two. So, he's accomplished quite a bit.
27,000 plus points. Yep.
Huge. And also, pushing that position to the success and the notability it has today. I give him a decent amount of credit for getting the ball rolling. So he's my 5.
I actually thought about putting Elvin Hayes at 5 myself. Good pick. Good solid pick there at 5. For me, I have the round mound of rebound, Charles Barkley at number 4. No rings. Everybody knows it, and everybody on TNT always gives him crap for it. But to me, being undersized at 6'4.5", even though he's listed at 6'6", which is still undersized for a power forward, his size, his athleticism, and what he was able to do on a basketball court just imposes will on his opponents. 24,000 points, I think 12,000 plus rebounds, 16-year career. I think is underrated career, mostly because it's overshadowed by the lack of championships. Former MVP, two-time Olympic gold medalist. I know that's not in the NBA, but still an accomplishment. I think a double-digit time All-Star. One of the more athletic power forwards you'll ever see in Charles Barkley. So that's my number 4.
That's a solid pick. I want to say before I go through the rest of my list, I'm going to say right now that I did not have Barkley on my list.
Okay.
So he was just outside. I had him at my 6. So he's not on my list. Obviously a legend, but I do not have it. I just want to say that right away because people might be expecting to hear his name. Well, you don't.
That's all right.
You're waiting because it's not going to be there. So, but again, a lot of people would put him on that list. I'm sure a lot of our people watching would put him on that list comfortably. But for me, that my number 4 spot is Kevin Garnett. Obviously a legend. I can't say he's overhyped because he's on my top 5, but I would say he's a little bit overhyped when it comes to Celtic legends, just a little bit. But as an overall player, because he only had one championship with the Celtics, but people forget what he did before that. People forget. I look at his career before the championship more than I look at his career during and then after, because yes, he was a huge part of their championship runs, arguably maybe the driving factor, but because it definitely was not Paul Pierce's lazy ass. I'm sorry. I hate Paul Pierce. I could do a whole episode about how much I hate Paul Pierce, but we'll save that.
That's a good
one.
episode topic.
It is.
Well beyond the arc, episode 17. I hate Paul Pierce. Here's why.
That could be a great one. There we go. But no, so Kevin Garnett's that 4 spot for me because obviously an NBA champion, but everything he accomplished besides just that. And he held great his whole career. He saw less minutes. Obviously, the end of his career, he wasn't playing as much. But when he did play, he still looked pretty good. He was a solid player his whole career, and he was pretty durable. So, he made every single season matter. Those last few ones when he went back to the Timberwolves, it wasn't really people were excited for that cat pair up with him and the mentorship. That didn't go anywhere. I mean, he was over it by then. There was nothing. He was not interested in that. So, But no, he's my 4 spot because he's definitely a legend, and he's not only a champion but also just one of the best to do it for sure.
Yeah. Oh, good pick. Number 3, greatest NBA power forwards of all time. I have another guy with no rings, the mailman, Karl Malone, at number 3. It's pretty hard to rank someone outside of a top 5 list when he has 37,000 points, almost 15,000 rebounds, played 20 years, 2-time MVP. The guy did a lot right. He just, he lost twice in the finals. At least he made it to the finals. Barkley only made it once, but for me, just this consistency. He was always a 25 to 27 point per game guy every season, double-digit rebound guy. Solid mid-range, 70-some% from the free throw line. They call him mailman because he always delivered, but to me, it was more about him being consistent. And he was delivering even up into an older age as well. I think he was still a 20-point per game scorer until he went to the Lakers for that final season, chasing a ring with Shaq, Kobe, and Gary Payton. But guy, one of the strongest guys pound for pound in NBA history. And to me, he's my number 3 power forward.
Absolutely, and that's a great pick. My number 3 it was tricky. Going up these top 3 was hard, but I had Giannis at my number 3 spot.
Wow.
I think that he is one of the best to ever do it, and I think that he will end up being that number 1 spot when he retires because this is a man that I see him being potentially the first NBA player to win 7 rings since. I mean, who was the last dude? Was that
Robert Horry, I think.
I can see Giannis being a player that sticks around for a while. Now, do I see him winning all those in a Bucks uniform? Absolutely not. Come on over to the Lakers. We'll take you. We'll definitely take you. We'll get you some championships right away. But no. So I think he will end up at that number 1 spot. I don't think he has done enough to be above number 3 quite yet, but he's a champion. He's an MVP. He has done so much, and he is still pretty young. He has a lot of career left. So obviously an ambitious call saying he'll win 7, but I think he'll at least be up there in the 5 to 7 range for sure. And I think he will be the best power forward ever when it's all said and done.
I was waiting for Jay to chime in as soon as you said 7 rings. Wow. Okay. I mean, look, I think he'll be one of the best when it's all said and done. 7 rings, that's a lot, man. But we'll see. For me, number 2 greatest power forwards, I put Dirk Nowitzki up here. This might be a controversial pick. I don't think so. Guy scored 30 plus thousand points. One of just a handful of guys, I think 7 or 8 guys in the history of the game to do it. He revolutionized the game. People talk about Steph Curry changing the game. Everybody was looking for a guy like Dirk Nowitzki, a stretch 4, a 4 that can shoot from the outside as well as Larry Bird could, basically, and maybe even do it better. When Dirk Nowitzki came in and started really ascending to that all-star level status. Happy that he got a ring in 2011. To me, greatest European player to play in the NBA, in my opinion. So for me, Dirk's number 2.
And that's perfect. We have the same number 2. So we've matched up for the first time.
All right.
I had Dirk for the same reasons. Like, you couldn't have said it. I mean, I could not say it any better. He is one of the best to do it. He's one of a select few to score that many points. And he was great until he retired. We saw them almost make a push close to the end. Now, it wasn't that close, but he was playing pretty solid basketball. I saw him live either his last season or the season before he retired, and he looked good. Everyone was going crazy in that building for him, and he put up like a 25-point game. So he could still do it in the end too. I think he just was done, and he did everything he wanted to do. And that championship is arguably a top 3 best championship all time.
Toughest road. Yep.
So such a tough road. Definitely not as tough as the 2020 Lakers, though. No, I'm just kidding. I'm on a roll with Lakers tonight. I just am thinking about them a lot. But no. So yeah, I have my number 2 spot for all the same reasons you've had him.
Okay. Number 1 on my list, to me, the greatest NBA power forward of all time, Tim Duncan. A guy won 5 championships, 26,000 plus points, almost 15,000 rebounds, played 20 years in the league. I think he's got the 3rd most NBA All-Star appearances, on the top 10 in blocks. Just a great player. San Antonio would not have a single championship if it wasn't for Tim Duncan. Was he the most athletic guy? No. Was he the flashiest guy? No. But the big fundamental, what he did was get it done. And he got it done to the tune of 5 rings. So for me, no, bring a smoke. Draymond Green, not up here. Not this time. To me, it's Tim Duncan for my number 1 spot. What about you?
So again, not super tricky at this part. I also have Tim Duncan in my number 1 spot. We matched up with those two picks, and rightfully so. Those two have set themselves apart from the rest, especially Tim Duncan. Like you said, that team would not be who they were. That franchise would not be who they were without him.
Absolutely.
So he's a huge part of not just that history, not just Spurs history, but NBA and just sports history in general. He's a huge part of that. So he's my number 1 pick as well.
All right. Well, before we go on to our small forward, shooting guard, and point guard picks, let's hold briefly for a word from the Yankee and the Brit.
What's up, everybody? It's your boy Jay from Yankee and the Brit telling you to come over and check out our shows. The Yankee and the Brit Sports Talk, Well Beyond the Arc, the Markout Podcast, Flagrant and Foul, Real Talk with Jay, and MMA Underground Weekly at YouTube.com/The Yankee and the Brit. Deuces.
Thanks, Jay. And you guys want to make sure that you check out those shows, especially with the NFL season coming in. I know Jay and Maddie's got, all over NFL training camps and previewing the season here. So be sure to check those out. All right, Montana, best small forwards of all time. These last 3 positions were the toughest for me. In fact, shooting guard and point guard were the toughest for me to rank, but it starts getting much harder here at the small forward position. Who do you have at your number 5 spot for small forwards?
So I've got Elgin Baylor at number 5. I think, unfortunately, was never a champion. A lot of Celtics championships were handed out at the expense of him and his teams. But people say, and it's hard to find a lot of highlights because that was a little bit before there's a lot of highlights out there, but there's some. But people say that he was Michael Jordan before Michael Jordan play-wise. That was Michael Jordan before there was a Michael Jordan, just with what he was doing and how much of an influence he had on the league and how much he was up here with these guys. He was up here. The clips I have seen, he's a player that is like, he could be okay in any generation of basketball. He is one that we could see him right now in the MVP talk if he was playing today. So I've got Baylor at I've got him at my 5 spot. Again, not a champion, but very much up there, record wise, which is impressive because he's hasn't played basketball in so many years, and he's still up there with a lot of that. So he's definitely the one that is up there for me, and he's my 5 pick.
Hey, Nick, thanks for joining us. Yeah, you know what? I was actually going to I was going back and forth between Elgin Baylor and Dr. J at number 5, but for me, I have the same number 5. That's Elgin Baylor for the same reasons you just said. I mean, he was a 6'5", 6'6" guy, somewhere around 27,000 points, but I think he had 10,000 plus rebounds too. And a very underrated part of his game is his rebounding and defense. But yeah, I mean, ask Dr. J, ask Michael Jordan, ask some of these high flyers before that, and they all will say Elgin Baylor's game that's who they modeled their games after. So interesting, we got that pick there. What about number 4?
So I've got Scottie Pippen at my 4 spot. I almost put him at 5, but the reason I decided 4 was I do think that you take him off of that Bulls team, and they are not a 6 championship dynasty team. Are they a 5 championship? 4? Yeah. Are they a 6 champion? No. He was a crucial part of more than we remember, because we are filled, Michael Jordan. That's what all we see. That was the star. But Scottie Pippen, you take him away, and there's some games where without him, we would not. I'm not a Bulls fan. Excuse me. I'm starting to think I'm a Bulls fan, I guess. But without him,
sound like me.
yeah, which not quite yet, but who knows? Maybe I'll switch over eventually. But no, so he was just something else, and I think that you don't see the same success if you take him off, because he did more than what we saw because of just where Michael Jordan was on that team and just in basketball. So I had Scottie Pippen because, again, he was a guy that was up there, and his resume and his accolades are very impressive. They're up there. They're not Michael Jordan, but they are very much up there and very much impressive. And I think he needs a little more respect than what he gets.
Yeah, I people are going to accuse me of copying off your sheet. I have Pippen at number 4 myself. And I'll go on to say we were on a roll, brother. But Scottie Pippen, yes, I am a Bulls fan. Everybody knows that. I'm wearing my Bulls T-shirt tonight. Scottie Pippen is actually my favorite player of all time. Michael Jordan's my second favorite player of all time. I was spoiled as a Bulls fan growing up, and I got to watch a lot of Scottie Pippen, especially when Michael Jordan retired the first time. You got to see him even grow even more. Did he deliver a championship without Michael Jordan? No. But he nearly won himself an MVP in the 93-94 season. Led the Bulls to the second round of the playoffs. They should have made it to the conference finals and beat the Knicks if it wasn't for Hugh Holland's terrible call. And Bring a Smoke, you're 100% right.
Agreed.
Jordan doesn't win 6 rings without Pippen. Those guys needed each other. Jordan knows it. He even said in The Last Dance, you can't say Michael Jordan without saying Scottie Pippen. Best small forward in the league in his time. And that's when Grant Hill was coming up too, but did it on both ends of the floor, was a 20-point per game scorer. All defensive team, one of the best, heralded as one of the best defensive players of all time because of his length, being able to guard guys 6'1" to 6'11". We won't talk about the comments that he made in his book, which I don't know what Scotty was smoking or drinking there, but don't necessarily agree. But hey, Scottie Pippen, number 4 on my list of NBA best small forwards. Excuse me. Who you got at number 3?
Kevin Durant. And I'm going to keep it short and sweet. 2-time champion, one of the best scorers ever, one of the best players ever. But a lot of his antics and a lot of his stuff in between holds him from being any higher. And it's not just that. I mean, come on, we look at these players obviously for what they do on the court, but what he has done off of the court has affected what he's done on the court. So for me, some of that stuff detracts him from that 1 or 2 spot. And also, I mean, this guy does not have as many championships as 1 or 2. And I'm not solely going off of championships, but that's a decent sized part of it for me, because that just shows, this, like I said, who had the most success. So I've got KD at my number 3 spot, but when it's all said and done, I think he will at least bump up to number 2. But as of now, he's number 3, but he's solidly in number 3. He belongs on this list. He's great. But where he's great, he also has a lot of shortcomings that sometimes overshadow the greatness for me. So I've got him at my 3 spot.
Bring in Smoke. I'll mention Tayshaun Prince's name just because you said it there at the bottom. Mason and the PA announcer for the Detroit Pistons. I used to love how he announced Tayshaun Prince's name. More about that later on. But anyway, listen, I got Kevin Durant number 3 myself. 2 championships. 50, 40, 90 guy, 50% from the field, 40% from 3-point range, 90% free throw shooter, one of the best offensive players in NBA history. So he's basically a 6'11" guard is what he is. And since we talk about Kevin Garnett all the time on our podcast, I'm going to stop talking about Kevin Durant, number 3, we can move on.
Perfect.
Number 2, who you got?
You got Larry Bird for number 2. For me, it wasn't that hard of a pick. he is another player that could play in any era and just cook players. That is a guy that it was all. I mean, he could just beat anyone on the court. And that, Larry Bird for me, I'm not a Celtics guy. I'll never be a Celtics guy. I do not like the Celtics. But Larry Bird is a legend, and he set the bar for that position. And he also set the bar for the league. And we forget, but him and Magic, again, they saved the league. So he saved the NBA, won a
Save for
couple
the guys in the back.
Yeah.
Yes, sir.
Did it all. Did a lot of trash talking and won a couple 3-point shooting contests as well, I guess. So he did it all. So he's my number 2, and comfortably number 2. He's right there for me for sure.
I got him at number 2 myself. Same reasons why. I mean, Bird was the original 50, 40, 90 guy, like I mentioned with Kevin Durant. Underrated passer, underrated defender. Also averaged 10 rebounds a game for his career. Not a lot of people know that. If it wasn't for the back injuries and stuff like that hampered him the last few years of his career, which when he did play, he's still, like you said, was cooking people. No, Larry Bird's an obvious number 2 choice. And I'm going to go out on a limb and say we both have the number 1 the same as well. So let's just hear it. We got a number 1.
LeBron James. I mean, and this is a player that I don't think anyone is ever going to pass him. It's going to take a minute. He's going to be a player that solidified himself in that number 1 spot. And when it's all said and done, he's going to be the all-time scorer. He's going to be top 10 in more than one category. He may have the most top 10. I don't know if he'll be the most top 10 with records, but he'll be in the top 30 for almost every record. I mean, almost everything you can think of, even turnovers, especially turnovers.
He's up there now.
Yeah, he's sure. But no, LeBron James is great. He's a champion. He changed the league, and he is a player that we will never see again. So LeBron James, number 1, and he's in a league of his own in this one.
Yeah, I mean, this is an obvious pick in LeBron James. I mean, the man's on a Mount Rushmore of NBA all-time greats. Yeah, I didn't have him as my GOAT. I have him as number 2, and that's not a slight. But I even said it last week. He is going to be very soon, as early as next season, the greatest statistical career of any player in the history of the NBA. And it's going to be very difficult for anybody to even come close to some of that stuff. He's going to have 40,000 plus points, 10,000 plus rebounds, 10,000 plus assists. He might be top 3 in assists. He might become the all-time leading assist guy by the time his career is over. Who knows how much longer he's going to play, but the guy there's literally nothing he can't do on a basketball court, being at 6'8", unstoppable when he wants to be. Yeah, that's LeBron.
Absolutely, by far.
Let's not belabor the point. All right, shooting guards. For me, the shooting guards and tough guards, or the point guards, are the toughest to pick. I'll start with my number 5 top shooting guard in the NBA of all time, and for me, it was Jerry West. I got to give it to another old school guy, Jerry West. Nowadays forgotten with all the different athletic combo guards we have in the league here, but Jerry West, the original Mr. Clutch, 25,000 plus points. His teammate of Elgin Baylor's as well. Those two guys were an incredible 1-2 punch. And then later on, when they got Will Chamberlain and the Lakers, they only managed to win one title, made it to the finals together a couple of times. Jerry West was like the Buffalo Bills of the NBA before they got that title, and I believe it was 72. Made it to the NBA finals numerous times, got beat by Bill Russell and the Celtics. But for me, Jerry West, the original Mr. Clutch, number 5.
Great pick. I've got Clyde Drexler taking up my 5 spot. He would have been honestly, Michael Jordan got in his way a little bit. Michael Jordan got in a lot of people's ways, and you didn't really look at Clyde Drexler as much as I think you would have if Michael Jordan was not at least similarly drafted similar season. It was very close, and people, Jordan just was polarizing, so everyone focused on him. But I think Clyde Drexler was one of the most underrated legends of all time. An NBA champion. He's up there. He's an all-star. He was consistent. He was constantly in the talks, for several different awards. Not super big with accolades. He doesn't have a lot of accolades in the award department, but he was in the talks plenty of times. And that was in eras when it was anybody's game every season. So he was a legend. He won that title, obviously, and I think he solidified himself in that top 5 position because he did so many different things, and he made a couple different teams look pretty damn good. So he's on my 5 spot.
Good pick. I didn't have Drexler in my top 5. He was just outside the top 5. For me, just a side note on Drexler, him getting traded to Houston and teaming up with Hakeem Olajuwon in 95. Both of them actually going to the University of Houston years earlier, becoming Phi Slamma Jam, and then reuniting with the Rockets and winning a championship in 95 was one of the coolest things I've seen in the NBA. I'm very happy for Clyde Drexler for that. And classy guy, too. For me, number 4, this might surprise some folks, but I actually have Ray Allen at number 4. He was the guy that broke Reggie Miller's record for most all-time threes in a career, just recently passed by Steph Curry. But I have Ray Allen here, longevity, that shooting stroke, the accuracy, and people forget when he was younger with the Milwaukee Bucks, that dude was athletic. I mean, he competed in slam dunk contests, 20, 25 points per game easily. And yeah, I mean, he was the true definition of a shooting guard. He was a guard that shot it, and he did it very well. Has a couple championships to his name, bailed out the Heat one year in one of the more memorable shots in NBA history. So for me, number 4 is Ray Allen. Who do you got?
Great minds think alike. I've got Ray Allen for the same exact reasons. Again, I think a lot of people maybe wouldn't even have him up in the top 5. I think some people don't understand what he did for the game because he was a huge part of where the speed of the game is at with the 3 ball, everything today. Like people think Curry, but before Curry there was Ray Allen. So
Absolutely.
I've got Ray Allen in the same spot, same reasons, and we're good to move on to number 3.
Yeah. Number 3, I was actually surprised I put him in my top 5, but I have Dwayne Wade as my number 3 shooting guard of all time. 3 championships, basically was the main guy on the 2006 Miami Heat team with Shaq, playing Robin in that role. Flash, I think a little bit of an underrated career, athletic, wasn't as great of a shooter as Ray Allen, but as a 2 guard, I thought he could do it on both ends of the floor. Definitely a top 5 player in the league, many years of his career. The 3 championships puts him a little higher than some other guys on my list. But for me, I was even surprised, but I have him at number 3.
Well, he's number 3 for me as well. So we're moving right along to getting that streak started again. But no, same reasons. I mean, he was great. I think that people looked, he was in the unfortunate position of being the same position the same time as Kobe Bryant. So
Yes.
yeah, Dwayne Wade,
Yes.
great. And he got respect. There's no lack of respect. I don't think he's underrated, but I think he would have a little bit more respect and a little bit more of a place up here had he not been right there with Kobe Bryant. And they were back when they would play each other. It was fun to watch, and they would go back and forth against each other. But they were cooking each other, other people. They were doing it all. So it was exciting, but I definitely think that kind of put him maybe a little bit below the that starlight. I think that of course Kobe Bryant took up most of that. So yeah, but he's definitely my number 3 as well.
Speaking of the late great Kobe Bean Bryant, I have been number 2 of my greatest shooting guards in NBA history. And just for the reasons you said, Dwayne Wade, great player, but when you put Kobe's accomplishments next to Dwayne Wade, there's no contest. Kobe Bryant, 5 rings, 33,000 plus points, did it on both ends of the floor. A fierce competitor, a Jordan clone who is even more psychotic on the court, if you can even believe that, as far as competitiveness goes. To me, the greatest tough shot maker. I mean, come on, everybody's like Kobe. That one in, you just have to take my word for it. But yeah, Kobe, the late Kobe Bean Bryant, got the Black Mamba, just a fierce competitor, want to rip your heart out and stomp on it. Yeah, for me, it was number 2.
Number 2, we match up once again, and I couldn't have said it any better. Kobe Bryant he's that step above. He was that step above. He was what a lot of people thought was like the next Jordan. When he got into the league, people said, we had a lot of similar moves, a lot of similar mentality stuff. Arguably, I think Kobe Bryant was a little crazier with it. He took it a little bit more. It was different. They both took things personal, but Kobe was just a whole different animal.
He just took that up to
whole new level. So so he was great, and he set the bar high, and I think we will not see another Kobe Bryant type of player again. He's another one of those unique, and I know we'll see players with similar aspects and similar skills, but all together, all those pieces together, Kobe Bryant was so special. So he's that number 2 spot comfortably.
Played 20 years straight out of high school, and he played through some tough injuries. I just remember one more thing about Kobe Bryant before I go to number 1. I remember hearing a story that he broke his finger, and I thought, okay, he's out for the season. Yeah, okay, bring it, Smoke. We can get you Rip Hamilton, one of the best to shoot off curls and picks kind of emulating Reggie Miller, but from the mid range there. But Kobe Bryant would just play through anything, pay through playing. I mean, played with a broken finger, and they won the 2010 finals. They won a championship with him. I'm not sitting out. Okay, shoot me up with whatever, or I'm not taking anything. I'm just going to go play through the pain. So for me, mad respect for the Mamba. But for number one, greatest shooting guard of all time, my personal GOAT was Michael Jordan. All the reasons that we said for Kobe Bryant, I just think Jordan was that much greater. Anytime you think of Jordan, you naturally think of the 6 championship rings, and you do naturally think about Scottie Pippen as a teammate and those guys forming the best Batman and Robin duo. Part of the Doberman's defense that Phil Jackson had with the Chicago Bulls there. Did it on both ends of the floor. Was a multi-time league leader in steals, most scoring championships, won with 10. Retired twice, took a year and a half off the first time, came back, and then later elevated himself to be the best player in the league once again. And then took a retirement a second time, didn't play for about 2.5 years, and was still playing at an all-star level. Not the same type of player, but was still a 20-point per game all-star level player up until he was 40. But we can go on and on about these guys, but Jordan, top shooting guard. Let's just jump right into the point guards. For me, this was by far the toughest one to rank. So 5 through 1, let's go. Montana, number 5. Who you got?
I've got Chris Paul. Definitely a player that every single franchise he's played for has been great. He took the Oklahoma City Thunder and he put them on his back and he took them to the playoffs, and they had success. They competed. So I've got, Chris Paul is my number 5. And also when it's all said and done, he's going to be top 2. He's going to be one of those guys with I think he could be around for a while. We could see him get that all-time assist. I don't know for sure, but it's you never know, because he's a player that his game could last a lot longer. When he's ready to be done, as long as there's no injuries, that's when he's going to be done. So I've got Chris Paul filling that number 5 spot because of who he is for every team he's ever played for.
If we had to stretch this to 6, I'd have Chris Paul as my 6th top point guard. So not a bad pick. I actually have Isaiah Thomas at number 5. Leader of the bad boys, Detroit Pistons. Nearly 20,000 points and 10,000 assists. Guy did it on both ends of the floor. I know I say that about a lot of players, but being undersized, especially his early years, if you look at some of those old games that Isaiah Thomas was playing, I mean, you thought Allen Iverson was getting to the rim. I mean, Isaiah Thomas was doing just that as well. Underrated as a scorer, but a great floor general. Underrated passer, by the way. But I think he did lead the league in assists a couple of years before John Stockton went on this crazy streak of leading the league in assists for like 10 straight years. But for me, the 2 championships set him apart from Chris Paul, so I have him at number 5. How about number 4?
I've got John Stockton at number 4. Excuse me. No. I apologize. I flipped this. I've got Isaiah Thomas at number 4. Sorry, I definitely don't have John Stockton at 4. I have Isaiah Thomas at 4. I had him above Chris Paul for the 2 things that he won that Chris Paul was never going to win, and that's championships. I don't know if I should. I mean, maybe he'll win one, but I don't see it happening. I don't think he's going to get one. I think he could play some more seasons, but I don't see him getting one unless he takes a role player position towards the end. Maybe he hops on a team, but I don't see him doing that because that's just not his style. But Isaiah Thomas, 2 championships, and going back to back in the 80s and 90s, you only saw teams like the Lakers and the Celtics doing that. And so the fact that these Pistons did this like they did, and they had a mini dynasty. I'm not going to call it a dynasty. I think you need to at least have 3 championships to call it a dynasty. But they were close to getting a dynasty, and obviously trades, injuries, everything broke them apart. But that team, the heart and soul, was Isaiah Thomas. That was Isaiah Thomas. When they were winning, it was because of Isaiah Thomas, and that could have been him on the sides or him on the court. He was the Detroit Pistons. So he's my number 4, and he's a player that I think is a little underrated, and I think that he's a player that deserves a lot more respect.
And I think he only played for 12, 13 years. Tore his Achilles, never came back in his, I think, 12th or 13th year. Once, I think, held the NBA record for most points in a playoff quarter, and it happened in the NBA Finals, 25 in a quarter against the Lakers on a bum ankle, mind you. One of the gutsiest performances in NBA Finals history. For me, number 4, I have Oscar Robertson, the original Mr. Triple-Double, first guy to average a triple-double in an NBA season, before Russell Westbrook did it 3 of the last 4 years, 3 of the last 5. Former MVP. I believe. Won one championship teaming with Kareem Abdul-Jabbar in Milwaukee. 6'5", taller guard, one of the bigger taller guards of his era, but definitely top 5 point guard for me is Oscar Robertson.
Absolutely. So now I did get it, and I got the right name at the wrong time, because at my number 3 spot I have John Stockton. He leads the league. I mean, he leads the record boards in assists. I believe he leads. Does he lead steals as well? I think.
Yes, he is the all-time leading steals guy and all-time leading assists in the
What
NBA.
more could you want other than maybe a championship or two? I mean, he did it all, and that Jazz team was in the mix every season in the '90s for the most part. Though him and Malone were really, really, really just one of the best duos in NBA history, one of the most underrated duos. So I would say he's my number 3 spot because of the success he had, but also, I mean, all-time assists and all-time steals to hold more than one record now with how long that, I mean, it's the 90s, but still it's been a while. It's been a while since that happened. It's been a pretty long-lasting. So will it get broken? Yeah, they're not unbreakable, but they're definitely impressive. They've held this long, and they wouldn't be where they are at if they weren't held by anyone other than Stockton. Stockton set the bar up here, so.
Smoke, I'm not going to repeat that, but I completely agree with what you said there. Yeah, I have John Stockton as my number 3 top point guard of all time as well for a lot of the same reasons. What I'll add to that is underrated defensive player, played in the league for 20 years, played until he was 40. Him and Karl Malone, literally all they did was pick and roll people to death. And he got 15,000 assists and Karl Malone got 30,000 points off picking and rolling people to death. And, they were smart. They went after what worked and they continued to work, and, they did it to perfection. So not much more to say about John Stockton, one of the greatest players to never win a championship. But still top 5 NBA point guard of all time. Who you got at number 2?
Okay, so the second, not the first, and I don't think he's ever going to be the first, but the second of all time, and this might make some people mad. I've got Stephen Curry. Second, all time.
Smoke, sit down, smoke, relax, take a breath.
Exactly who I was referring to, because I know that's your guy. But here's the thing. Curry's amazing, all-time leader in three-pointers. He is going to win himself at least one more championship. He is a player that changed the game. He the way we see these high school, middle school, the way we see them play now was very much heavily influenced by the way basketball was changed up top, which was with those big guys, and Curry was one of the biggest ones in that change. So we see so many more threes, and we've seen a surge since Curry was making it look cool and making it look like that's the way to win, and now that's what everyone wants to do. You'll see Joel Embiid throw up a 3. Maybe we'll even see Ben Simmons throw up a 3 if he steps on the floor this season. If he steps on the floor. But I've got Curry. I've got Curry number 2, and I've got him solidly number 2. And could he get up to number 1 eventually? Potentially, but he has a lot more to do to get up to number 1 in my specific opinion. So I've got him comfortably number 2.
See, the role of the point guard has changed the game. Number 1 player of all time. So Smoke is going to be on that mountain for Curry as the GOAT. He's not coming off. You can't get him off there. Muggsy Bogues right up there. Fracas. Absolutely. Oh, yeah. Look, I think Montana, you and I have the same number 2, number 1. For me, number 2 is Steph Curry right now. Could he be number 1? Absolutely, but not yet. Not yet. He's got 4. Definitely changed the way the game's played today. It's totally eliminated the traditional center. Completely agree. All-time leader in three-point shooting. But people forget the guy averaged 7 assists per game in his career. And traditionally, a point guard is the guy that runs the offense, sets everybody else up as a table center. Now, over the last 20 years, it's really shifted to somebody that it needs to be a scoring guard, like a combo guard, if you will. As far as a shooter, Stephen Curry, greatest shooter of all time. We've said it a million times on the show. He's technically a point guard because he's got Klay Thompson as a 2 guard next to him in the backcourt. But Stephen Curry runs the show there in Golden State, will continue to do so. I think he's going to get one more ring as well, Montana. But for me, as far as a point guard of all time in the NBA, I have him number 2, which isn't too shabby.
Not at all.
Number 1, let's hear it. I'm pretty sure. Let's hear the name, Muggsy Bogues. You got this.
We definitely have the same one. I just know it. So coming at number 1, this guy changed the game, and there's no one even close, and that would be Russell Westbrook. No, but anyway, seriously. So I'm gonna get serious for now. No. I wanted to hold it.
Serious for a second.
I wanted to hold it long, but I just couldn't. I don't want anyone thinking my number 1 pick.
I almost fell out of my chair.
No, but being serious, Magic Johnson. And here's what I want to say. If we want to talk about a player that really changed the game, that's Magic Johnson. Steph Curry changed the game as it's played today in certain factors. Magic Johnson changed the game of basketball as a whole. So Magic Johnson, in my opinion, changed the game as we know it today. And I mean, 6-time champion, more than one time. I mean, so many MVPs, he did it all. That guy did everything. And to win that much, but also be on a team with a superstar like Kareem, that just shows how balanced of a player he was. That duo worked so well because of balance. So Magic Johnson / Russell Westbrook is my number one pick.
One way to give our viewers and myself and Jay a heart attack by having Russell Westbrook at number one. My gosh, we need to have a list of guys we mention the most on our podcast. I think KD and Russell Westbrook and Kyrie up there. But anyway, see, they got mentioned again. No, I've Magic Johnson is my top point guard in the history of the NBA for the same reasons you said. The guy was a 6'9" point guard. 6'9". I mean, I completely agree. Steph Curry's changed the way the game is played today. But since Magic Johnson, there haven't, the closest thing you've seen to a 6'9" point guard is what, Jay was mentioning earlier, point forward. You have LeBron James playing a point forward. Scottie Pippen played point forward for a good part with the Bulls. Grant Hill, in his prime before he got hurt, was more of a point forward. Penny Hardaway was a tall point guard at 6'7", not quite 6'9", but that's what people were saying, the next Magic Johnson. A guy that got you 20 points a game, 10 assists per game. A true floor general, the leader of the Showtime offense, one of the more exciting offenses in NBA history, leading the fast break, no look passes. He wasn't just a gimmick at 6'9". The guy was a legitimately good passer and got his team. He was a true floor general and got his team going. And Kareem Abdul-Jabbar was great. He was a top scorer in the NBA. He doesn't get 5 more championships without Magic Johnson. Now, granted, Magic probably doesn't get him without Kareem either, but he kind of took that Lakers team to the next level and got them to be one of the two, the team of the 80s. Let's just say it, Unfortunately, HIV diagnosis kind of cut his career short. Probably could have played another couple of years, really add on to his numbers. He would have been over 20,000 points, and he probably would have been the NBA's all-time leader in assists if it was not for that retirement in ahead of the 91-92 season. But yeah, 6'9". We haven't seen it much since. You have Ben Simmons at 6'10" trying to play point guard, but he couldn't sniff Magic Johnson's jock if you paid him. But if Curry wins number 5 championships, does he get to number 1? That's a great question.
He has to win 6 or 7. Now 5's not enough. 5's not enough.
Oh, that's tough. That's tough. Let's see where Curry's at the end of his career. What other accolades he has? Does he get another MVP? Does he win at least another championship? Does he get another Finals MVP?
If he can get more than one, if he can get at least one more MVP, if he can get at least one more of all those awards plus 5 championships, then I think he'd be up there for sure. But if it's just 5 championships, I don't think so. No, it's going to take more than that.
Well, we'll see. Let's see if he gets that 5th championship. We can have the conversation again. But great debate as always. Good conversation to have. Smoke will be happy when he gets his 5th, his 6th, and whatever other championships he wins. That's for sure. So, anyway, that brings us to a close of our ranking of the top 5 NBA players of all time by position. I'm not going to go back and list them all. Hopefully, you guys are watching. That's why we have this thing on YouTube, so you can go back and watch it. But you guys disagree, put it in the comments. Be sure to follow the show. But this isn't Well Beyond the Arc isn't the only place where you can find Montana and myself. Montana, where else can our viewers and listeners find you?
Yeah, so I have another show called The Connor and Heffernan Show. We're on Spotify, Podbean, and Amazon Music, and it's just a little bit of everything. We only have 6 episodes out. We took a little bit of a break, but we might start that up soon. And then a Lakers podcast is on the way. I have a big move coming up, so it's probably going to be closer to when the season starts, but I'm going to be getting a Lakers podcast that I'll get plugged out once it's ready to go.
Sounds good. Yeah, be sure to check that out. For me, check out my website. I have a blog website called thesportspageblog.com. Be sure to check that out. I just released a blog a couple of days ago ranking my top 10 NBA starting lineup introductions with video. If you want to make sure you check that out of all time, and a little brief history of how that got to be started as far as how the NBA started doing player introductions, turning off the lights, music, all that stuff. Be sure to check that out. Pretty interesting stuff. So the sportspageblog.com. Also have some trivia. You can find the links to all of our Well Beyond the Arc website or episode links on there is take you straight to the Yankee and the Brit channel as well. So be sure to check that out. Well, thank you everyone for joining us today. Let us know in the comments if you guys had somebody else at number one or any rankings in our top 5 positions. I'll be taking a break most likely for next week, but we'll catch you guys back in 2 weeks with some more great NBA basketball content. And until then, we'll see you later.